On today's show, we got some news this morning and some unexpected news when it comes to the Milwaukee Bucks. Terry Stotts, everyone was so excited to have the veteran coach on the staff. He's gone before the season even started. How did this happen? Why did this happen? And quite honestly, how distressed should the Milwaukee Bucks be about what this means for disruptions leading into opening night? The Bucks also added Glenn Robertson III. We'll get to that at the end. Plenty to talk about.
You are Locked On Bucks, your daily Milwaukee Bucks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Bucks. My name's Kane Pittman. You can see and hear me on this show Monday to Friday, and also find my work at ESPN alongside me, the founder of BrewHoop.com and longtime voice of the podcast, Frank Madden, for today's show that's brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, official sportsbook of Locked On. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn to get started. And as per usual, we thank everyone for making Locked On Bucks your first watch or listen of every single weekday leading up to the season. There's lots of excitement and news. Sometimes news you don't necessarily want to get. We're going to get into Terry Stotts here in just a second, but if you haven't done so yet, the season just a week away. So subscribe, turn the notifications on. All the post-game shows, pre-game shows, previews, news breaking, everything you want here on Locked On Bucks. So continue to support the show. Frank, originally, I'm finishing up at Locked On Bucks. So if you're just joining in today because you want to hear the Terry Stotts news, I've got a week to go. My last podcast is going to be after opening night. We'll do a post-game pod, hopefully a happy way to finish off my run here. And we were going to just talk about some memories and some things that we've discussed over the years, Frank. But that can be parked until next week because I did not expect to wake up to the notification I got tonight or this morning that Terry Stotts, the lead assistant, the guy that's going to be running the offense, the man with all the experience with Damian Lillard, he's gone a week before opening night. We can step through this and eventually get to the reporting that's come through. But what was your initial reaction? Because this one genuinely floored me.
Well, first off, we can't just brush by you leaving the podcast that quickly. Well, Terry Stotts can wait, right? Kane, of all the people that would be afraid of this podcast dragging on long, you're talking to the person who cares the least about 20 and 30 minute podcasts, right? So we should just say, because I mean, I don't know, some people probably saw it on Twitter. It was great when you referenced it on Twitter this morning that you were going to be moving on. And TBD, right? I'll let you reveal your next move when the time is right. But you obviously you're not leaving purely because you're sick of me. It may have played a role in it, but it is it's an opportunity-driven thing, and that's, I think, just obviously really exciting. I can speak for Justin and Camille as well in saying we are very sad that you're not going to be hosting anymore. You've been kind of the rock, obviously of this show for, I mean, it's crazy to think 4 years, right? Over 1,000 episodes. I mean, I don't know. We joke sometimes about how, like, man, how the hell have we done this many freaking podcasts, but you're the one that's been grinding day in and day out. You're the one that produces, edits, posts all this content. I just literally show up, a couple times a week and talk to my friend basically. And so I just wanted to reiterate what a lot of people were saying on Twitter when you reacted. It was cool just because you tagged me, and I was seeing a lot of the people comment how sad they were that you are going to be leaving the podcast. And again, like I have a feeling you'll poke your head in semi-regularly. Yes. We'll make you come back and chat with us. But I don't know. It's funny. I forget what it must have been 2018-19, I guess, the first kind of year. Was that the first year that you were in Milwaukee when you kind of made the trip over and you just sort of threw caution to the wind? Am I correct on that?
Yeah, that's correct. Oh, no. It wouldn't be a podcast without a little bit of a pause, and it's just a little bit earlier than expected, Frank. I don't know if it was an emotional pause, but yes, 2018-19, I first met you at the original live pod.
Yeah, and I was going to say that was in the fall of 2018. I was going to joke that, 4 years ago, I had met you once before you became my co-host, and now 4 years later, I've met you twice. So, just every 4 years we see each other. But it's funny, Brian Curtis from The Ringer did a story about the Bucks media landscape when the Bucks kind of were rising to prominence. And he got wind of, me being sort of the elder statesman of, Bucks blogosphere or whatever. And so I talked to him for like a half hour or so. And we talked a fair bit about you as just sort of this like, man, it's just such a random story. This Australian guy just gives up, his regular life in Australia and says like, screw it, I'm going to go to America. I love basketball. I'm going to Milwaukee, my team that I randomly became a fan of, 15 years ago, or whatever it was at the time, 20 years ago. And it's kind of crazy now that here you are, and you've been co-hosting this podcast, and you've become this presence on, ESPN Australia. You were in Bristol, filming all this stuff all summer for the World Cup. And I have to say too, it's just, I'm very proud of just kind of everything you've accomplished, and excited for what's to come next. And just watching you on your TV stuff, it's just like, man, this guy's freaking good. Terrible on podcasts, but really good on TV. But no, I just want to say, we'll have chance obviously to reminisce a bit more, because there's important Terry Stotts news that we need to get to. But I'll just, again, I did want to say right off the top, because the news broke today, and you were just going to gloss over it, and some people listening to this are going to be like, wait, what? But yes, you are going to hang up your podcasting spurs, or hosting spurs, or hang up your hosting hat, whatever it is, after the opener. So that is a post-game pod that I will not miss, Kane. It'll be our ride into the sunset, our last dance, sort of. But yeah, just it's been a blast, and it is funny how much time, I spent hundreds of hours talking to Eric Name for years and years when he was hosting. He gave you the warm handoff. I was like, let's, I'll pod with Kane. I don't really know Kane that well. And hundreds and hundreds of hours later, you've become a great friend. And I don't know, just thinking back to a conversation we had I was in a parking lot after the Bucks won a championship. Like that's a special moment that we were able to share with a lot of Bucks fans. That was pretty amazing. So yeah, we'll have more time to reminisce, but yeah, excited for what you've got coming next, and glad that hopefully we'll still see you around these parts sometimes. But Terry Stotts.
Just wait. We'll get to
Terry.
Terry
You want to react to that?
I just want to say just quickly, and then we'll get to the Terry Stotts stuff. I mentioned it in the tweet, but whether it's the title, a damn league shutdown for 6 months, and then the bubble disaster, and let's face it, there's been multiple Bucks playoff runs that were highly disappointing, and we've had to go through that. The Giannis injury in the title run, trading for Drew Holiday originally, trading for Bogdan Bogdanovic and reacting to that in real time, trading for Damian Lillard. We've had coaching firings, and ultimately the show has grown because the Bucks have been really good, and we are both very, very clear about that. We have a lot of fun, and it's been crazy to have the interactions. Moving to YouTube was not something that we used to do before as well. So yeah, lots of things have changed. And I did mention this, like the show is going to roll on. Don't you worry. Like I will be back on the show from time to time. And I can tell you, I'm not making any announcements here, but the people taking over probably going to take the show to more levels as well. So it's going to be a fun season. I had multiple people say to me, the Bucks just trade for Dame and now you're leaving. And I think that you've got a valid point. I'll say more about what the job is that I'm going to next. And, in a funny way, I haven't seen the Bucks play live for around 4 years. I think there's a chance that's going to change sometime in the near future, which I'm excited about that as well. But we'll speak about that more next week. All right, let's get to Terry Stotts, though. First, FanDuel, and then we'll get to Terry Stotts. And look, I said this before, there's going to be a number of people that do not give a crap what I'm doing personally, Frank. So hopefully they've skipped through to this point, and then we'll get to the news of the day with Terry Stotts after we talk about FanDuel, and you can snap into action this NFL and NBA season with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. That's $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action. The app is easy to use. There's a wide range of betting options, including spreads, player props, over and unders, and more. And we discussed the win total for the Milwaukee Bucks, around 53.5 right now. I don't know if you're put off by any of today's news, but you can look at the win totals, division titles, conference titles, NBA awards. Everything there is at FanDuel. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and kick off the NFL season, tip off the NBA season. That's FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. The Locked On Ultimate NBA Season Preview is here, a 6-episode series with all 30 of our Locked On NBA team shows. From contenders to tankers, we go in depth into the biggest storylines heading into the season. Catch all 6 episodes on Locked On NBA or YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts. And you'll notice in the Locked On Bucks feed, whether it's audio or YouTube, the Contenders podcast is there. I was a part of that. We filmed that last week. So you can dive into that one when you get a chance after listening to this show. The Terry Stotts news, as I was saying, Frank, I was floored when I woke up and saw the notification on my phone. Just a genuinely shocking development, so close to the start of the regular season.
Yeah, I mean, well, first off, my leading theory, which our friend Eric Name and Shams Charania, they have not corroborated. I just pictured this showdown in the coach's room between the former Bucks head coaches Terry Stotts and Joe Prunty, both noted firebrands. I mean,
That's right.
Two guys, just two very combustible guys. Both guys that Joe Prunty, he was the offensive coordinator for Jason Kidd.
Mm-hmm.
Terry Stotts, known offensive guru savant, maybe. I don't know if that's overstating it. Clearly, Joe Prunty and Terry Stotts, the coach's room was just not big enough for the two of these huge personalities. And Terry Stotts is, 6'7", 6'8". Joe Prunty's probably a foot shorter than that. Kane, what do they say in football? Low man wins. Ain't no stopping Joe Prunty. Joe Prunty is the ultimate survivor. If the asteroid hit the dinosaurs and wiped them out, Joe Prunty is the, small woodland mouse that survives, and the big dinosaurs, the 6'8" Terry Stotts, he can't survive that asteroid hit. Jason Kidd, they can't survive. Joe Prunty survives, lives to fight another day, and I don't know. We'll see. We'll see if Joe Prunty has his sights set on any other coaches on this side. Okay, that was a long.
Well, let me just jump in and say that you might be onto something, because last time Joe Prunty was in Milwaukee, he was the head coach and he was running an offense with Shabazz Muhammad and Tyler Zeller, and he sat back and said, "We've got Damian here. You think I'm taking a back seat running this offense? No chance in hell."
Yeah. Okay, so actual reporting has not involved Joe Prunty at all, but
Yes.
But look, I mean, I would definitely say, like, over the summer, as a fan, Adrian Griffin, I pretty much, when I saw the finalists for the head coaching job between, Nick Nurse, Adrian Griffin, and Kenny Atkinson. I was going to say, like, who's the former Nets coach whose name escapes me? I thought, Atkinson and Nick Nurse, right? They're actually have head coaching experience. It's going to be one of those guys, and I'll be fine with that. And then it's, the record scratch, Adrian Griffin, right? 0 for 14 getting head coaching jobs or whatever his track record was of having interview jobs and not getting it. First, the story comes about Giannis, and then it comes out that he gets the job. And so hearing that they were bringing in Terry Stotts and to a lesser extent Prunty, I think, like, as a fan, and again, like, assistant coaching stuff, it's just like, it's such a black box, right? Like, what was Terry Stotts doing day in and day out? I don't know. Like, was he grinding like assistants normally do? I don't know. Was he more of, like, the offensive guru who the younger guys did the heavy lifting as far as scouting and, the opponent scout? I don't know. Did he not like having to face the grind of being, an assistant coach? I don't know. Is Terry Stotts running from the grind, Kane? I have no idea. Or maybe it's a personality issue, and, the reporting from Shams and our guy Eric tonight suggests that there was, at least this one incident in practice in the past week or so, where basically Adrian Griffin requested to basically have the coaches huddle after practice, and Terry Stotts goes and starts talking to Dame and Giannis about something, and Adrian Griffin wants him to come over and he doesn't, and it, like, becomes this awkward thing, which is interesting because we never hear this kind of, like, hashtag scuttlebutt about the Bucks, right? Like, you don't get this type of stuff. Like, I'm immediately thinking of, like, when Mo Williams, like, punched, I don't even know who it was, punched somebody in the locker room. Do you remember this? Like, whatever it was, 15 years ago or something.
Yeah.
We don't get juicy stuff like this in the Bucks. Bucks are boring, right? So this is definitely a bit weird that A, something happened, and B, it actually got out. So, but again, like, was it really like one thing? No, you would have to think it was, like this was the buildup from just a general lack of alignment between these two guys. And I mean, who wanted to hire Terry Stotts? Was it actually Adrian Griffin? Was it the Bucks telling Adrian Griffin, hey, wouldn't it be great to have a proven head coach with you on the sidelines who can be the offensive guy and you can be the defensive guy? We'll bring him in, we'll pay him whatever, and you work with him. Was that pushed on Adrian Griffin, and now we're seeing the result of maybe him not ever wanting to hire Terry Stotts in the first place? I don't know. That would be my speculation, that this was maybe a bit of an arranged marriage, and I don't think it reflects well on Adrian Griffin that Terry Stotts is not exactly like known as some like hothead. As much as I was joking, he's obviously not known as some like hot-headed guy, right? He was in Portland for 9 years, right? So he's been around, and he's been able to stick places. So I don't know. I mean, again, he may just assistant coaching just may not have been what he was interested in, but for this to happen, for him to leave, a team. I mean, he's lived in Milwaukee. He was here a long time. It's not like he didn't know what he was getting into in terms of like the city. The Bucks are one of the top contenders for a championship. Dame Lillard literally just showed up, guy that he coached for a long time. We can speculate about like, did Dame actually, does Dame actually not want to play with Terry Stotts or something like that? But we don't have any evidence of that. And Dame even said after practice today that he kept in touch with Terry Stotts even after he was fired. So, I mean, it doesn't seem like there's anything really there. So, yeah, it's just weird. And, Nick Nurse was the guy out of that group of head coaching finalists who had the reputation for being kind of prickly and not being able to get along with people. The rumor was that his inability to get along with Earl Watson, an assistant on the Toronto staff last year, was part of the reason why he ultimately left Toronto. So interesting that Adrian Griffin now is losing his first assistant before he even coaches his first regular season game. So again, who's to blame for this? Like, I don't know, right? Like, it's possible there's nobody to blame, and it's just a fit personality thing. But I don't know. In the abstract, from a distance, it seems like it would have been pretty convenient and good to have a guy with Terry Stotts' experience on the sideline. Now you don't have that, and I don't know. If the Bucks don't play as well as we'd like them to, it's not going to take long for people to start wondering if Adrian Griffin was the right coach or the right pick to be the head coach of this team. And again, as we said, right, like there's no there's no time to kind of just be figuring stuff out as a head coach with this team. Like, there's too much talent, there's too much pressure. It's going to be year to year with Giannis, et cetera. And so I think, again, there's been pretty good vibes around the team. Before this, I don't think anybody would have said there was like bad vibes. People have talked about the energy, the competitiveness that he's brought to practices and all that. But, we'll see when the season starts. If things don't start off so well, if, the offense doesn't look like the juggernaut that everybody assumes it to be, the defense just looks shaky, whatever it might be, we know how this stuff goes. Like, pressure will come pretty quickly for Adrian Griffin. And certainly a strange event like this is, definitely not an encouraging sign in the grand scheme of the universe.
It was interesting because when you talk about the pressure, and naturally when you have a contending team and now you've got Giannis and Dame, the expectations are sky high. And that was kind of the reason why we did the podcast yesterday about, the slow start potentially and just trying to figure things out. The Bucks might expect that that's going to be the case, but I'm not sure they're going to be afforded that luxury from the outside media. The spotlight is going to be on Milwaukee, so it's challenging as a first-time head coach. And I would imagine that Adrian Griffin wants to stamp his mark on this group. And as you pointed to, it sounds like the players are really enjoying it so far. But Terry Stotts hasn't been an assistant since Dallas in 2012. He was a head coach in Portland for a long, long time. And it certainly is possible that maybe he was just like went on a few preseason trips. They've been away for a couple of weeks and he's like, hey, man, this assistant coaching job, this isn't for me. And if that's the case, I mean, it's the timing isn't great. You don't love it. I'm sure the organization isn't thrilled about it. But if that's what he's decided to do, then I guess it's better now than doing it a month into the season. But I didn't read anything into those reports about what Adrian Griffin told him to come to a coach's meeting and he didn't come. It's kind of it was a weird report. I never really read that and thought, gee, that's bad from Adrian Griffin, or what's Terry Stotts doing? It just, maybe there's just a relationship here that didn't necessarily get along, or maybe it's completely irrelevant to all that. But I think overall, not good timing. Adrian Griffin was asked about why this happened, and he said, I'm not sure, ask Terry. So we're still waiting to see what comes of that. Damian Lillard was asked about this, and he said, look, it wasn't expected. We were told about it. I don't think it's going to impact much. Now we move on. So maybe this is something that outside will look at and think that it's some huge deal, because if you have the coach that's, by all reports, been running the offense, and then you lose him a week before opening night, the initial thought is, well, who takes over that? And is that a major problem? That's something that we won't really know. But I do agree with you that if the Bucks do have a slow start, there's the chemistry between the superstars. There's Giannis and Chris Middleton coming off surgery. There's some new players off the bench. There's questions about the starting lineup. Is this team defensively going to be where they've been at in previous years? And now you lose a veteran coach off the bench. So there are a lot of questions, and there are a lot of reasons why, if you're a Bucks fan, expect that people are going to ask questions and put the spotlight on Milwaukee, which might not be too fun. I think it's just going to be a different situation. You mentioned the no drama Bucks. This is the type of stuff that in my 4 years hosting the podcast, we haven't even had discussions about this type of stuff. So it just feels different if you're a Milwaukee Bucks fan. I want to ask you whether you think that they should, what path do they go down now? Do they try and send out a call to one of the other veterans that doesn't have a job? And then we'll get to Glenn Robertson III as well. But first, Jace Medical, sponsor of the podcast today. And we've spoken about the Jace case before, which is a personalized emergency medication kit that contains 5 essential antibiotics that treat the most common and deadly bacterial infections. Now you can also customize your case and add life-saving medications based on your unique needs as well. Jace is continually working to expand their medication offerings, and in recent efforts, there are other medications there that you'll be able to find when you do go to jacemedical.com. They have the customizability in that Jace case with dozens of add-on medications. Choose the medications that best fit you and your family's unique needs. And this is all through consultation with doctors along the way as well, it should be pointed out. So go to jacemedical.com and enter the promo code LOCKEDON at checkout for a $20 discount on your order. That's promo code LOCKEDON at jasemedical.com. We should also mention the Bucks do have one more preseason game coming up tomorrow against the Memphis Grizzlies at home, and Chris Middleton is playing. So through all the bad news, Chris Middleton is making his preseason debut, which I'm going to be very excited to see how he looks out on the floor as well. Unfortunately, we haven't seen enough of him over the last year or so. So you lose the lead assistant. Terry Stotts is out, as we've just discussed. There is all sorts of question marks over why and how this happened. Let us know in the YouTube comments how you feel about the reporting, the situation. Are you concerned about what this could mean for the Bucks? Do you think that, and this is, again, coaching staffs, it's so speculative, it's hard to know what goes on inside. But do you think John Horst and the front office right now are making emergency phone calls to Nate McMillan, Mike D'Antoni, who I think is a consultant somewhere, these types of veteran coaches that have been in those types of situations before? Or do you think that they're just going to press along and go with the staff they've got so close to the start of the season?
It's a good question, right? Like,
yes,
how many, how many good assistants are just sitting around available in mid-October each year, right? Not many, right? You're not going to generally find up and coming assistants because they've all, latched on with other teams, right? Like Charles Lee is like the perfect example, right? Like Charles Lee, loses his job as part of the sort of Bud departures over the summer. Well, he's now in Boston, right? Like it was just a matter of whether he would get a head job or find something else. So yeah, I think like the only coaches that, you would kind of typically think of as being available are the kinds like you mentioned. They're the guys that are generally kind of proven and maybe ex-head coaches who just haven't taken a full-time job somewhere, maybe haven't been, interested in just taking an assistant's job, because it's like Nate McMillan, how much is Nate McMillan being paid by the Hawks the next couple of years still, right? Like probably like millions of dollars a year. He doesn't need to work.
Yeah.
Excuse me. He doesn't need to work. Like it's a good life, right? Just kind of hang out, ride out your, last payments over a couple of years that your former employer owes you. So, the Bucks are at least in an interesting position in that they can offer a chance to win a championship and an interesting opportunity. And I don't know. I mean, it's an interesting question as far as how desirable is that coaching job because, well, the guy who just had it, quit before the season even started, so that's a bit concerning if want that gig. But I don't know. I mean, I have a hard time, seeing the Bucks being bad enough that Adrian Griffin gets like fired in season or something like that.
Yeah.
Um, but I mean, who knows, right? I mean, if things were disastrous this season and there was discontent among either Dame and or Giannis or something like that, like if they if the season ends and it's like those guys don't believe in Adrian Griffin, then again, like if it was during the season and you're the lead assistant, then hey, congratulations, go to coach a team that could win a championship. If it's after the season, then you're probably just losing your job, and they're hiring someone else. But yeah, I don't really know what they're going to do. It's a pretty it's a pretty damn unusual circumstance. Not quite, Ime Udoka getting fired or getting suspended for a year ago by the Celtics because of the inappropriate relationship stuff that he was accused of, and whatever else, right? I think it sounds like it went beyond just inappropriate relationship, um, but yeah, it's a strange situation, and I'd be lying if I said I knew that the Bucks were going to hire another assistant, or like they could obviously promote one of the younger assistants that they have. Although, I mean, the staff's all new, right? So it's not like you've got a bunch of guys that have paid their dues with Adrian Griffin, and now you can reward them, right? It's like, well, you got guys that have been here for a few months, so I don't know. We'll see. It's an interesting question, but I don't know. I don't think this dramatically, changes the Bucks' destiny this season or something like that. But as you said, it's the kind of coaching dynamics are a black box, and at a minimum, I don't know how much Terry Stotts was, going to save Adrian Griffin from rookie mistakes as a head coach or something like that. But at least from a distance as a fan, I could take solace in knowing that he was there, whether that's valid or not. Sort of some of the safety net is now gone along with Terry Stotts, and as you said, it'll be interesting to see if they do make a move to bring another assistant in. But flip side is, I mean, as NBA coaching staffs are pretty huge, so it's not like the olden days when you had a head coach and like one assistant or whatever it was in like the 70s. So yeah, we'll have to see. Strange story that I don't know that I can predict exactly what happens next.
I think it's a good point you make in terms of it might be more of and I'm not diminishing the role of the lead assistants across the league. Clearly, it's very important, and I do think it's important. We know, losing Charles Lee was a blow. I mean, this is a guy that's been considered for head coaching roles across the league, but it's a first-time head coach. But Adrian Griffin's also been an assistant for 14 years. He's been around the traps. This isn't Joe Mazzulla coming from the second row of the bench and all of a sudden leading a team. So Adrian Griffin's got the experience. That's not to say he's going to be a great coach, but he's been around the traps. He's seen this before. So I would like to think he's not absolutely freaking out right now a week out from the season. But we'll see what the Bucks do moving forward there. They did make a personnel move, a little minor one as well, but a cool one if you've been a long-time Bucks fan. And Frank, I know you're wearing your black T-shirt right now, but it looks like it's purple, so that's reminding me of Big Dog. And it was announced this morning that Glenn Robinson III, the Bucks have signed him to an Exhibit 10 deal. So we'll see. They did waive a couple of players in the last day or so here, so maybe it's ultimately turns into a two-way spot. We know that the Wisconsin herd is going to be pretty damn entertaining with some of the young players the Bucks have. So if you want to throw Glenn Robinson III in the mix there, that would be pretty nice. And one thing that I did think was pretty cool, Little Dog, is that what they called him? I don't know what his nickname is, but he tweeted and said, "I'm more than excited to be back hooping. I can remember being at Bucks games as a kid watching Pop's life really does come full circle," which I thought was a pretty cool note because it obviously does make you think of those very popular Bucks teams early in the 2000s.
So let me just say, I was always a Glenn Robinson guy.
That's right.
In hindsight, it was wrong because Ray Allen was the better player, but I never liked Ray Allen as much as I liked Glenn Robinson. And uh, I followed Glenn Robinson when he was at Michigan because I, his dad was one of my favorite players. And so it was interesting kind of following Glenn Robinson III, GR3, his career. Um, and it's actually, I mean, it's a bit odd that he has been out of the league the last couple of years because, I mean, he had a few seasons where he, looked like a very legitimate NBA player, career 37% 3-point shooter, not a high volume guy, but was always a good athlete, kind of ironically, unlike his dad, was a bit leaner and more athletic, dunk contest winner, more of a highlight reel guy, but also, could knock down open threes and, had the makings of like, if he squinted hard enough, had sort of some of the 3-and-D qualities that you typically like. So, I mean, a few years ago, he was definitely one of those guys that I looked at as like, oh man, I mean, could you get him as like a late bench type guy? Like that could be pretty interesting at, 6'6", 6'7", kind of 2-3 size. Maybe he'll play a little bit of defense and knock down a three, maybe make an athletic play now and again. So yeah, it's been interesting that he's been out of the league a couple of years. His last year with Sacramento was not good. But again, there's no roster spot here. So, I mean, I don't anticipate obviously that he's going to make the roster or anything like that. But the timing is also a bit weird, right? Like if it was just sort of like an Exhibit 10
Like
and
preseason,
yeah, exactly. He gets immediately waived and then gets shipped to, the Wisconsin Herd. That would have made kind of more sense. But again, I assume he'll be waived and then hopefully he can play with the Herd and, who knows, right? Like it's not like he's a two-way guy at that point. He's not two-way eligible because he's too old. He's played too many years in the NBA. But yeah, I agree. Like a little nostalgia, like is he going to wear his dad's number 13? Like, does anybody on the Bucks have number 13 right now? My brain's not even functioning. Do you know? Let's check the roster while we're jabbering here. Check the roster to see if anybody is currentently wearing 13. I know obviously Malcolm Brogdon did, but off the top of my head, I can't remember if anybody's got it right now. Go. You checking the Bucks roster for me here?
No, man.
No, man. I'm not checking the Bucks roster.
It looked like you were typing. I was just letting you roll
okay.
there.
Well, first off, okay. All right, let's just. This is bad radio, but let's just do it. I'm not seeing a 13.
Nice.
Tai took number 23. So your company, your employer, ESPN, their roster page has Robin Lopez wearing number 33, which pretty sure he's not wearing Kareem Abdul-Jabbar's retired number 33.
That'll
But
be controversial.
Yeah, a little controversial. Kareem, are you willing to give up? Are you willing to unretire your number so that Robin Lopez, who, let's be honest,
it's from one hook shot.
Does like hook shots. Yeah, he likes hook shots. Very thoughtful guy. Both of them very educated, right. Thoughtful guys.
Like to read.
Love to read. I wonder if he's read any of Kareem's books. So yeah, GR3. It's too bad they we saw the purple throwbacks last year. If we could have gotten the purple throwbacks to see Glenn Robinson III wearing his dad's number 13 in a game, I mean, that would have been, really the perfect thing. I remember, who did wear number 13 last year in purple, and I called him a fraud because he did not he did not honor Glenn Robinson's legacy. He was really bad in the first game. I remember him wearing that jersey. Jordan Wara, old friend Jordan Wara, sucked in like the first game where they wore the purple jerseys, and I was just like, dude, you are leaving a stain on the purple 13, my friend. Get it off. Give him number 12 or 14. No, I can't give him 14. That's McLaughlin. But give him 78 or something because you're not. No, this is not working. I can't believe we talked about Glenn Robinson III that much, but we did. But hey, Chris, we didn't talk about the Chris Middleton much. You mentioned it. Yes. It's important Chris Middleton plays just because like I'm sick of like random NBA podcasts talking about Chris Middleton like he might be dead and like in a dark room, like getting the old Carlos Delfino concussion treatment. Like, oh, we don't know where Chris Middleton is. He's laying somewhere in the dark, and we may never.
Here we go again. Not the old.
Just calm down. Calm down.
Carry on.
Were you going to say something about the Carlos Delfino? By the way, Carlos Delfino, one of the few people that's blocked me on Twitter. Carlos Delfino blocked me on Twitter. Carlos Delfino, Bogut blocked me at one point and then unblocked me. And I think Luke Bamute at some point blocked me, but maybe he unblocked me too. I don't know. I was just persona non grata with like the Fear of the Deer Bucks, apparently, like that. Don't ask what John Salmons thinks of me. God knows what him or, well, hopefully Kurt Thomas wouldn't have blocked me. Hopefully
John
Thomas.
Salmons wants to jab step you straight to
I
the
know.
head.
Oh my God.
For your Twitter activities.
Just jab step me.
Well, I think that's a good time once we start talking about John Salmons to wrap up this podcast. Honestly, this offseason for the Bucks and doing this podcast and some of the conversations we've had, it's been honestly pretty exciting because a lot of the offseason, there hasn't been a lot of movement. We've had a major trade. We've had a little bit of drama. But let us know what you think. How have you felt as the day's gone on and you've digested the news that Terry Stotts no longer going to see him on the bench? It was a fun 4 preseason games that we had there, but he's gone. And now the Bucks play the Grizzlies tomorrow, so I'm sure we'll all watch the last preseason game. Chris Middleton is going to be out there. But as I said, let us know your thoughts from the day's news and Glenn Robertson III as well. We'll leave it there. We're back next week. I've got 1 week to go. I'm not going anywhere. We'll be here next week in the lead up to the season opener. For Frank and myself, enjoy the weekend.